Corporation of the Village of Marrickville Wolford, agenda for council. It's a special council meeting at 10 a.m. on Friday, September the 11th, 2020. And I'll call the meeting to order and ask if anybody has a pecuniary interest, and if they do, what is the general nature thereof? And I'm getting no's from all members of council that no one has a pecuniary interest. And I'd like to have a motion, please, to approve the agenda as presented. A mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and seconded by Mr. Helpney. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Marrickville Wolford does hereby approve the agenda of the special council meeting of September the 11th, 2020 as circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the first item on the agenda is under the section of planning, and mover and a seconder to put that motion on the table, please. Thank you, Mr. Helpney, and seconded by Mr. Foster. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 44-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the acquisition of the property legally described as parts 1 and 2, 15R 12089, and blocks 21 to 28 inclusive, Plan 15M13, be read a first a second time, and the bylaw 44-2020 be read a third and final time and pass. And I'll turn it over to our CEO just to speak briefly to that, or speak to it.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, as you know, the Parkview Development recommended draft conditions of approval for the subdivision are coming to council on Monday. Part of that application, a critical access, road access into that development site, is the St. John Street southerly access point into the site, and Parkview did not own all of the lands leading into that for the road allowances. So before council could consider that, Parkview had arranged for two small portions of land to be transferred to the municipality, so that the municipality would be assured that the road allowances would have access in the event that you approve the plan of subdivision eventually. So that's all this is. They're transferring 2 parcels of land to municipality, and the drawings you can see it's part 1 and part 2. And I'm happy to help orient council geographically if they want some clarification, but Sophie Lane is currently built out, and houses are being built on it right now. It runs west off of St. Lawrence, and Margaret Street runs north off of County Road 16. So I think that helps you to orient. You can see part 1 and part 2 in the drawings. And at the immediate north boundary of part 1 is the southern boundary of the Marrickville Grove subdivision.
Sorry, say that last page again.
The north boundary of the part 1 in the lot shown in the drawings, that north boundary is the south boundary of the Marrickville Grove planned subdivision. So that L-shaped parcel of land combined with part 1 and part 2 is to allow the St. John Street extension to connect with Sophie Lane eventually.
Mr. Malloy and then Mr. Cameron.
So currently, who owns it? Parkview owns it?
No, they had to make arrangements from the current owner, which is, I believe, Pat McBain, which is the owner of the McLean's Landing Phase 2 subdivision. So they've arranged through a civil agreement of some sort to have that transferred to the municipality.
Okay, and just one last question. So St. John Street, I would have thought St. John Street went right the way through, but apparently it stopped at the north line of part 1. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship. The St. John Street road allowances, Edward Street, George Street, all of those road allowances were stopped up and closed by the municipality several years ago.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron.
Okay, that's partly what my question was. That property is in Merrick Mills presently, right? That's
Correct.
the old thing. And I thought there was discussion that we had previously discussed when we were talking about making a connection from Sophie Lane, St. John and Sophie Lane, that Parkview was going to purchase the lands necessary to make that connection. Was that not part of the conversation that we had at one time?
So, Your Worship, I don't want to get into in-camera discussions, but we have received an application for a plan of subdivision for McLean's Landing Phase 2. That hasn't come to council yet. It will be coming to council very soon. And then Councillor Cameron will see what the road fabric is and so forth in that design when that comes to council.
Right.
And I believe we'll be doing a public meeting very shortly on that.
Okay. So it'll be a separate public meeting and so on that piece.
And what cost are we looking at?
I'm sorry, Your Worship,
want to know-
the cost of getting Part 1 and Part 2 transferred is zero cost to the municipality.
Okay.
If there aren't any other questions, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? Opposed?
Oh, sorry, I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just delayed in my
Just
hand.
for the record, that was unanimous passing of the motion. Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, if I may just sign the
Oop,
bylaw.
sorry, yeah.
We have to get that quickly over to the lawyer so that it gets registered on title before Monday.
There we are. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is a preliminary infiltration and inflow report from JP2G Consultants, and there's a motion for that as well. So I'm going to move and a seconder on that motion, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and a seconder would be Mr. Cameron. Mr. Helping. Thank you. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maryville Wolford has hereby received the draft preliminary infiltration and inflow report from JP2G Consultants, Inc., dated August the 7th, 2020, for information purposes. And I'll say something, but I'll certainly defer to our CAO just for clarification. So this is the ongoing study from the direction of council gave to look at ways where we can identify and take actions to mitigate groundwater infiltration. So it's a preliminary report, it's not the final one, and it's for council's information. Is that accurate enough?
That's actually, in a nutshell, Your Worship.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if you have questions. As I say, it's a draft preliminary report. So we can actually, just in round numbers, do we have some kind of an idea when a final report might be available?
I don't, Your Worship. They're still continuing to collect some extra data just to build it out so they have a very comprehensive report for you, but I haven't followed up on the exact timelines yet.
That's great. Okay, thank you so much. Boldly, I will say, I'll call for the vote on the motion to receive as information purposes. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And next is a motion regarding the appointment of for a deputy chief building official. So mover and a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and seconded by, thank you, Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 45-2020, being a bylaw to appoint Sean Merriman as deputy chief building official for the Village of Maryville Wolford, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 45-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. And I'll turn it over to our CAO to make a few comments, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council is aware, Randy Wilkinson is retiring very shortly, and we are legally required to have a building official, a chief building official or deputy chief building official. He then typically covers off for the chief building official. We're going through a recruitment process, and as council is aware, we're still going through that recruitment process. As you also know, I have regular interactions with our area CAOs. We're building partnerships. With the shortage of qualified chief building officials in the province right now, I've been reaching out to area municipalities and speaking to our CAOs to find out if they have surplus capacity where they could lend somebody to us, or if we could partnership on it, that type of thing. So I just want to take a moment to thank and commend Sean Merriman and Matthew Armstrong from the town of Prescott, because in my discussions with them, they were very, very willing to step up and work with us and partner with us. And Sean Merriman is going to perform the functions of our CBO after Randy retires until we can land in a permanent employment or relationship with somebody. So this is not an employment relationship with Mr. Merriman. It's actually a procurement of professional services. And we will be covering off the town of Prescott's actual costs. So there's no markup or anything like that involved.
So, and so, in the meantime, there is that posting, if you will, to seek somebody permanent in the longer terms.
Correct, Your Worship.
Thank you. I've got Mr. Cameron and then Mr. Foster.
Do we know what the cost that will incur for this, what their rate is?
So thank you, Councillor. So we do. Unfortunately, because it's their actual costs, and their actual cost is Mr. Merriman's compensation package, it would be confidential information. I can certainly divulge that to you in camera. I wouldn't be able to divulge that to you in open just because it reflects his compensation package. But I can tell you it's actually, let's just say, more favorable than the most recent arrangement, negotiated employment compensation we had with the previous candidate. So it's actually going to result in a reduction in costs from that.
So we'll be doing it on an hourly rate basis?
Correct, Your Worship. So we'll be reimbursing the town of Prescott of their actual costs. Those costs right now are anticipated to be mileage and and Mr. Merriman's hourly rate. There may be occasions where Mr. Merriman will go over the statute limit of 44 hours per week, in which case it might pop up to an overtime rate, but that's common with our own staff as well.
Thank you. Mr. Foster.
Yeah, I just noticed in the paper, Smith Falls is currently advertising for a deputy chief building official. Is there?
So, forgive me if I'm trying to remember the status of our discussions with that, Your Worship. I believe, and I stand to be correct here, I believe we're still in-camera discussions with that. So I can answer your question, yes, they have posted for a deputy chief building official, and yes, I am in discussions with Malcolm Morris at the town of Smith Falls for opportunities, as I am with any other municipality as well, looking for ways to partner. Just as, forgive me, but because my memory's failing me right now, whether that discussion was in camera discussion or not, I better leave it at that. And I better leave it at that.
Okay. Mr. Malloy.
Yeah, so just a breakdown, Mr. Merriman, is he with us full-time, or is it an as-needed basis?
And so thank you, Councillor. It's I think more accurately portrayed as an as-needed basis, but he has indicated he actually will be able to help us out quite extensively.
Okay.
We will probably ultimately actually have greater resources than we did while Randy Wilkinson was with us part-time for this interim period. And then we're obviously going to be keeping a close eye on workload and demand and so forth and reevaluating as we go, but I have a direction from council to recruit for that position for somebody full-time. So that's certainly something I'm moving forward
So
with.
he's still working at Prescott then also, he's still covering his Prescott basis?
He is, Your Worship, yes.
Thank you.
And just on that, to build on that comment, and so hopefully be able to build something in terms of regular days and or times when he'll be available in Merrickville Wolford.
Correct. So thank you, Richard. We will have, we'll be working with them. And some of the what analogy can I use? But some of the sand is still settling, the chips are still settling. But we do know that we will have some regular hours. There may be half days every weekday, something like that, with additional hours in the evenings or weekends, that kind of thing. We're still evaluating how best to reconcile his workload in Prescott versus here, but we will definitely be providing the service that we're legislatively required to provide. So.
That's great. If there aren't any other questions,
And we can't, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Mr.
So
Malloy?
we can't, and just to clarify, we can't discuss the Smith Falls situation because that wasn't in camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but we're still on track that way.
We're still in negotiations or in discussions with other municipalities, including Smith Falls.
okay, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Great questions. Mr. Cameron.
So just a quick clarification. So what we're gonna be asked to do is go ahead and appoint or to recommend that Sean become the deputy building official without knowing the actual salary, but that salary is more favorable than the last salary we discussed. So we're not exceeding our budgetary.
Mayor, correct.
Well worded question.
Correct. Our costs are expected to be lower than they were going to be
Right.
if we were to recruit somebody internally at the rate we previously discussed in camera. And so in terms of favorable, it's more favorable to the municipality right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And again, if I may just offer, I'm happy to divulge further details to you in camera if council wants to go there, but just a reminder, it's a procurement relationship. So we are procuring professional services from the town of Smith Falls
Yep.
rather than hiring someone.
I mean, the town of Prescott.
My apologies, the town of Prescott.
Yeah.
Correct.
Good
So,
catch.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to go into an in-camera for that discussion, as long as the CAO is indicating that those costs are cheaper than we've already approved, so I would have no problem with that.
Yeah. And we got an affirmative yes to your
Correct.
question. That's great. Thank you so much for that. We didn't see any other hands going up, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rick.
And now we have a confirmatory bylaw, so a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Mr. Helping, and a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Foster. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 46-2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting of September the 11th, 2020, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 46-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now we have a motion to adjourn, please. A motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Helping. And a seconder would be, thank you, Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that the special meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville Wolford does now adjourn at 10:20 a.m. until the next special meeting of council on September the 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m. or until the call of the mayor is subject to need. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you all very much.
And 6 p.m.
Have a good weekend.
Doug?